If you want to destroy a person, let that person be a man. If someone dared to say this today, netizens would probably rush in to criticize them mercilessly. But there was once a woman named Nora Vincent. She didn't believe that. She spent 18 months disguising herself and infiltrating the world of men as an insider. After the experiment ended, Nora fell into a deep depression. In 2022, in a hospital in Switzerland, she quietly ended her own life. In her book, she once wrote, "Every man's armor is something he borrows temporarily, and it's 10 sizes too big for him. Beneath that armor, they are naked, insecure, and don't want you to see it." Of course, this doesn't mean that men suffer more than women, but rather that both men and women have their own hardships. In the previous part of this video series about the two genders, we talked about the difficulties women face. I also realized that as a male content creator, there are many things I can easily overlook. I truly appreciate everyone's feedback. But when I started to look into the difficulties men face, I also discovered that it contains all the elements of a problem that is almost unsolvable. An ideological imprint that has lasted for thousands of years, a self-reinforcing system passed down through generations, and a responsible entity that is almost impossible to clearly define. Perhaps even men themselves have never realized that they have fallen under such a curse. In this video, we will talk about 3 keywords related to men: sacrifice, repression, and inequality. Just like in the previous part, I hope that when watching this video, everyone won't rush to compare who suffers more. Rather than trying to determine who wins or loses, I want to answer a more intriguing question. Do you think women understand what it feels like to be a man? Not at all. They have no concept whatsoever. They are completely unaware. Imagine this. There's an out-of-control trolley speeding toward 5 people on the tracks. You're standing next to the tracks. If you pull the lever, the trolley will switch tracks and kill one other person instead. Wait, I know this one. This is the trolley problem, right? If we change the question a bit, to save the 5 people, you have to personally push an innocent person onto the tracks. Would you do it? If you're still unsure, let's add another condition. The person being pushed has to be a man. Does that make the choice a little easier for you? I know this question is very cruel, but in many wars, accidents, disasters, and crises, the logic that operates in reality is often quite similar. Men are often assumed to be the ones who can be sacrificed first. When a ship sinks, women and children go first. When war breaks out, men are sent to the front lines first. When a family faces hardship, men have to step up and bear the burden first. This is a logic deeply ingrained in human society. Men must be responsible. Men must shoulder the burden. Men are not allowed to back down. It may sound very heroic, but put another way, it means that when danger arises, men are usually the first to be pushed forward. In East Asian culture, this is even more apparent. From a young age, many boys are taught that because they are boys, they must be strong. You are a boy, you must not cry. You are a boy, you have to give way to your younger sister. You are a boy, so in the future you must take care of the family. These statements may sound normal at first, but in reality, they are silently imprinting a command into a boy's mind. Your value does not lie in whether you are loved or not, but in whether you are useful enough. Many men go their whole lives without truly learning how to live for themselves. They only learn how to be a responsible son, a responsible husband, a responsible father, and a responsible employee. But they don't know how to become a person with normal emotions. Such images are not uncommon in Vietnam either. A man over 40 squeezing through traffic in the morning to get to work, then coming home at night still having to worry about his children's school fees, utility bills, rent, and medicine for his parents. Sometimes he himself suffers from back pain, insomnia, and prolonged fatigue. But the first thing they say is still, "It's okay, I can handle it. It's okay, Dad can take care of it. It's okay, just hold on a little longer." Behind those three words, "it's okay," there may be a whole life quietly cracking apart bit by bit. This is the first keyword for men, sacrifice. But sacrifice is not the most frightening thing. What is even more frightening is that men's sacrifices are often taken for granted. If a woman gives up her career for her family, we often feel sympathy for her. But if a man works at a job he hates for 20 years for his family, many people just see it as something normal. If a woman says she's tired, people might advise her to take a rest. But if a man says he's tired, very often the response he gets is, "Who isn't tired?" Men have to endure. It's that word "have to" that weighs the most. Men have to earn money. Men have to buy a house. Men have to have a career. Men have to take care of their parents. Men have to protect their wives and children. Men have to withstand pressure. Men have to be strong-willed. Men always have to stand firm. But very few people ask, are men allowed to break down? Are they allowed to be weak? Are they allowed to say, "I really can't take it anymore"? Here, we move on to the second keyword, repression. Compared to women, men are often deprived of the right to express their emotions from a very young age. A little girl who cries might be held in someone's arms. But a little boy who cries is often told he's being a crybaby. When a girl says she's hurt, others might encourage her to speak up. When a man says he's hurt, very often all he receives in return is silence, ridicule, or alienation. Over time, men learn a very particular skill to hide all their emotions inside. They don't talk about their sadness, their fears, their loneliness, their stress, or even know how to express their anger. In the end, many men are left with only two ways to express their emotions. One is to stay silent, the other is to lose their temper. Because they were never taught how to say, "I'm sad, I'm scared, I feel abandoned," or "I need to be heard." In many Vietnamese families, you'll notice that fathers almost never know how to talk about emotions with their children. He might pay for school, fix the motorbike, take his child to the hospital, and quietly do all sorts of things. But when the child asks, "Dad, do you love me?" he becomes awkward and might even reply bluntly, "If I didn't love you, why would I raise you?" It's not that he doesn't love his child, but rather that he has never been taught how to express love. A man who has been emotionally repressed for too long often becomes like a closed-off room. On the outside, it may look normal, but inside, the air is gradually running out. Some people use alcohol to temporarily forget. Some people use work to avoid facing things. Some people use silence just to survive each day. Some turn all their suffering into anger toward their loved ones. Therefore, when we talk about men, we cannot just look at their tough exterior. Toughness is sometimes not strength, but the last shell they are forced to keep. Nora Vincent once disguised herself as a man to enter that world. She joined men's gatherings, went on dates as a man, worked as a man, tried living among groups of men, and ultimately realized that men are not as free as many people think. Many men are also trapped in their own role of being a man. They always have to be the initiator, always the one who pays, always the one who takes responsibility, always the one who cannot be afraid, always the one who cannot be weak. But inside, they are also human beings who need to be loved, need to be recognized, need to be comforted, need to be told that they don't always have to be strong. In fact, many men are not afraid of hardship. What they fear most is suffering without anyone noticing. They are afraid that even after giving their all, they are still told it's not enough. They are afraid that after straining themselves to the point of exhaustion, others will only look at the results and judge them. They fear that one day, if they truly collapse, no one around them will believe that a man like them could fall. This is something truly sad. Society both demands that men be strong and yet does not allow them to talk about the price of that strength. Society both praises men for being responsible and at the same time assumes that they must bear all that responsibility. Society wants men to be the pillar of the family, yet forgets that even pillars can crack, and when a pillar cracks, the whole house may shake. The third keyword is inequality. When it comes to gender inequality, many people immediately think of the injustices that women have to endure. That is absolutely true. Women face very real difficulties. But this does not mean that men do not have their own injustices. It's just that these injustices are often hidden beneath a veneer of privilege. For example, in marriage, men are often expected by default to have a house, to own a car, to have a stable income, to be the one who proposes, and to be the one capable of shouldering responsibilities. In many Vietnamese families, when a young man wants to get married, the first question isn't whether the two truly love each other, but rather what his housing situation is, how much he earns, and whether he can provide for the future. Meanwhile, if a man says that he also wants someone to lean on, he is very easily seen as weak. If a man doesn't want to get married too early, he might be called irresponsible. If a man doesn't earn much money, he is easily judged as incompetent. But if he makes a lot of money, he might be seen as just a cash machine for the family. Many people say that men have more opportunities. This is true in many fields, but having more opportunities doesn't mean having less pressure. There are positions in society that give men more power, but at the same time place higher expectations on them. If those expectations aren't met, they turn into shame. An unemployed woman might be sympathized with as someone going through a tough time. But an unemployed man can very easily feel like he has lost his value. A woman with a low income can still be seen as someone who is trying her best. But a man with a low income is easily seen by himself and others as a failure. This is the trap of traditional masculinity. It tells men that they are only worthy of respect when they are strong. They are only worthy of love when they are useful. They are only worthy of being heard when they are successful. You are only allowed to be vulnerable after you have won. But in life, who is always winning? So how are ordinary men supposed to live? Those who aren't too rich, not too successful, not too strong, not too eloquent, not too noticed, do they still deserve to be loved? The answer is of course yes, but in reality many men don't truly believe that. They believe they have to do better, earn more money, endure more, and complain less in order to be worthy of existing in the eyes of others. Therefore, when we look at men, we shouldn't just look at the successful man on stage. Look at the man sitting silently in a bar after a long day. Look at the father dozing off on his motorbike while waiting at a red light. Look at the husband calculating and recalculating every expense for the month. Look at the son who returns to his hometown and still has to smile and act as if nothing is wrong, even though he barely has any money left in his pocket. Look at the man in his 40s sitting alone on the balcony late at night, not smoking, not saying a word, just sitting there for a long time. They are not heroes, but they are not heartless either. They are simply people who have gotten used to hiding everything inside. At this point, some might ask, so are men just victims? No, men also have their own responsibilities. There are men who use their pressure to hurt women. There are men who use their power to impose on others. There are men who, in the name of responsibility, avoid making an effort to understand. There are men who, not knowing how to handle their emotions, turn their families into the place that bears the brunt of their anger. These things must all be faced directly. But facing men's issues head-on does not mean denying the suffering of women. Just as talking about women's suffering should not turn into denying men's suffering. The two genders should not stand on opposite sides of the trench, using their own pain as weapons to attack each other. Because very often, what causes both men and women pain is not each other, but the outdated stereotypes that have bound them both. Women are expected to be gentle, self-sacrificing, and to take care of the family. Men are expected to be strong, to earn money, and never to break down. Women are judged if they are not feminine enough. Men are judged if they are not masculine enough. Both are playing exhausting roles. The only difference is that the props each side carries are not the same. Therefore, what we need is not to ask who suffers more, but to ask how people can live more like human beings. How can women avoid being trapped in the role of the one who sacrifices? How can men avoid being trapped in the role of the one who must bear all the burdens? How can a person be both strong and gentle, both responsible and allowed to rest, both love others and not lose themselves? Perhaps the answer does not lie in some grand slogan, but begins with very small things. When a man says he's tired, don't immediately say, all men have to be like that. Try asking, what are you tired about? When a woman says she's exhausted, don't say, women have to take care of the family. Try asking, what do you need to share? When a boy cries, don't say, boys aren't allowed to cry. Say, if you're sad, just cry. Mom and dad are here. When a girl wants to be strong, don't say, why does a girl need to be so strong? Say, if you want to walk your own path, just go for it. If we can change these small phrases, perhaps the next generation will be a little less constrained. Men don't need to destroy themselves to prove they're men. Women also don't need to sacrifice their whole lives to prove they're women. A person should first be allowed to be a human being and only then a man or a woman. Nora Vincent once stepped into the world of men and then left it carrying a great deal of pain. That story shouldn't become a reason for us to keep arguing about which gender suffers more. It should serve as a reminder that behind every gender stereotype, there are real people being crushed. If you are a man, I hope you not only learn how to endure, but also how to speak up. If you are a woman, I hope you not only see the armor that men wear, but also the person trembling inside that armor. If you are a parent, I hope you don't raise your son to become a machine for enduring hardship. And don't raise your daughter to be someone who only knows how to sacrifice. A better world does not begin with men defeating women or women defeating men, but with us putting less pressure on each other to live within roles that are too confining. Perhaps we can't change society overnight, but at the very least, starting today, we can learn to speak to each other a little more gently, understand each other a little more deeply, and give each other a little more breathing room. I am a middle-aged man. If you find these insights valuable, please like, subscribe to the channel, and follow Middle-Aged Men so we can live more mindfully in our families, in our masculine and feminine relationships, and in life. See you in the next video.